President Madison asks Congress to declare war against Great Britain. A lot of people don't know the president can't just decide to go to war. He needs to get the approval of Congress. So both the House of Representatives and the Senate vote, and they approve the request. Both of these votes are pretty close because people realize the risk of this war. We're not prepared for another big battle. So Congress decides we're going to war, and we didn't really realize what we were getting into. We also didn't realize that the British were willing to solve things peacefully with us because there was no way to get that message to us quickly. So the presidential election of 1812 was a contest between the War Hawks and the People for Peace. The War Hawks supported Madison because he had declared war. The people who wanted peace supported a guy named DeWitt Clinton. So the election was very close, but Madison wins re-election, and he basically says, you know what, since I won, that's justification for the war. A lot of people who were business owners they were shippers, they owned small companies. They thought the United States should wait and should avoid going to war and should try to solve this peacefully. They didn't think we should get involved or sucked into another conflict. So on land, American soldiers had very little success. Each time we tried to invade Canada, we thought it was going to be easy. We were wrong. One defeat was at Detroit, where the Native Americans and Tecumseh joined together with the British to fight against us. The following year, we invaded Toronto, and we were able to take it, but only hold it for a short amount of time. And a later attempt to take over Montreal was a failure too. So we thought Canada was going to be easy to take over, but it proves that we're wrong, and we take quite a few losses on our way to Canada. In the first year of the war, the American warship, the Constitution, does have some success. So this boat, the Constitution, got the nickname Old Ironsides because cannonballs bounced off of the side of the ship. And part of the reason why is this ship was made out of relatively new wood, so the wood was still kind of flexible, and they would shoot the cannonballs at it, and sometimes they would just bounce off instead of breaking holes through it. The American Navy destroys 1,500 British ships during the early parts of the war. In time, the British bring some reinforcements, and they're able to get most of this under control, though. They create a blockade, and they stop us from shipping our products to France. In 1813, the Americans, under the lead of a guy named Oliver Hazard Perry, brought a group of small ships to a naval battle at Lake Erie. This battle is important because it stops the British from coming through Lake Erie to get to the Ohio Valley. There was a couple other important battles that we win during this time. General William Henry Harrison defeats the British and American Indian Alliance, and Tecumseh is killed. And once Tecumseh is killed, this really squashes the Native Americans' will to fight back. During the War of 1812, there was also a group called the Creek Tribe. They're Native Americans as well. And Andrew Jackson defeats the Creeks at a place called Horseshoe Bend, and he forces them to sign a treaty that gives up 20 million acres of their land. So we beat them and take even more of their land from them. So when 11,000 British troops invade New York in 1814, they're sure that the Americans are going to be no match for them, but at the Battle of Lake Champlain, our small boats are able to outmaneuver the big, heavy British boats. So these big British boats are incredibly powerful. They're loaded with weapons and artillery, but they can't maneuver very quickly. And a lot of these boats have guns on the sides. Well, our boats were smaller and much more maneuverable, and we were able to basically outflank them and attack and sink many of their boats. In August of 1814, the British land with about 4,000 more soldiers, and they raid Washington, D.C. And the soldiers are ready for us, and we're not ready for them. Within a few hours, they capture the Capitol and burn down the White House. James Madison leads a group of soldiers there and tries to push them back, but he's unsuccessful. The British sailed north, and they attacked Fort McHenry, and they wanted to capture Baltimore, Maryland, too. So the fighting goes all throughout the night. And by the end of 1814, both sides are tired of this war. We're ready for it to be done. Great Britain already had a huge debt built up from their war with France, and this war with us is getting more and more expensive. The longer they fight, the more it costs them. They're losing a bunch of money, and they're tired of it. They also remembered that we can fight for a long time. We fought the Revolutionary War with them. Even though we were outnumbered, we did not quit. Even when things were dire, we don't quit. So, for the American people, many of them don't know why we even got in this war, and it was hard to support something that they did not understand why we were even fighting. A lot of people were out of work, especially in the North, and it was clear that this war, us trying to prove we were strong enough, was a wasted effort. So what happens? During the summer of 1814, the Americans and the British meet in a place called Ghent, Belgium. And they talk and talk and talk, and they eventually design something called the Treaty of Ghent. And the Treaty of Ghent agrees to a couple different things. It says all territory and places that were taken during the war will be returned and restored. And they decided the war was a tie. So all that fighting was for nothing. We got no new territory out of it. We didn't get any money out of it. We lost a lot of soldiers, and the British people lost a bunch of money too. And all of that was for things just to go back to the way they were before. So what happened at the Battle of New Orleans, though? So when this treaty was signed, there was no news broadcast on CNN or Fox News to let people know the war is over. And in America, there was still fighting going on. So Andrew Jackson takes a group of soldiers, and he's fighting against a large group of British soldiers. He's actually outnumbered. And in this battle, he's able to kill 2,000 British soldiers, and they end up retreating. And this is a victory for us after the war was technically supposed to be over. This is important for a couple of reasons. One reason why it's important is it gives Andrew Jackson a lot of credibility. It helps him become more famous and establish himself, and that's going to play a role a little bit down the road. So the War of 1812 is often called the Second Revolutionary War, and they call it that because we're fighting against the British again. So even though we declared independence in 1776, the British feelings towards us and our feelings towards them had not changed a whole lot. We were still pretty bitter towards them, even though this was years later. But this war, even though it was a tie, it helped us get some respect from other countries around the world because we proved we were able to fight with them. We didn't win, but we put up a good fight. This also gave Americans more of a sense of nationalism. And nationalism means being proud of your country, being proud of who you are. During this war, another thing that happened is Americans had to become more self-sufficient. So instead of buying stuff from Great Britain, we had to start making more products on our own. And the country is going to continue to grow west, and that was made safer by us clearing out more of the Native Americans and taking more land from them and signing treaties. Okay guys, so we're done with chapter 9. Let's knock out the worksheet for lesson 3 and 4.